Alright, everybody. Good morning. This is going to be a very early upload. This is a first for my channel. I'm going to do a review of The Last of Us Part 2. Now, as of the recording of this video, the game has been out for a couple days now. And I got this game knowing full well what it entailed. I was aware of the leaks that came out months prior. I even watched early playthroughs on YouTube and Twitch, and I was like, you know what? Father's Day was coming up, and I asked for the game, as a gift, and I received it because I wanted to get my own hands-on experience with it, to form my own opinions about it, because I see it was causing quite the uproar in the community. Now I've played through The Last of Us 1, and it was a pretty solid game. It was clunky as hell as far as like controls go, but for a game that is more about the narrative than it was about the controls and just like the overall gameplay, I would say it hit its mark and it deserves all of the praise that it gets. Now, The Last of Us Part 2, on the other hand, this game is a completely different story, and I mean that literally. It's not as good as those publications are making it seem. It is not a 10 out of 10 experience. It's not a bad game. I don't agree with all of the user reviews giving this game like a 1 out of 10, a 1 out of 5, because there are some things here that deserve to be praised. But as a whole, this game is not that. It is not a 10 out of 10. So, moving on. As far as gameplay goes, the one thing I'll say is this: as much as I love the first game, like I said, it was clunky, and the sequel makes minor improvements on the formula of the gameplay, but it doesn't do too much where it feels like it deserves all the praise that it's getting. And I'll come back to what I meant by that. So, from everything to melee combat to the way the gunplay feels, The Last of Us Part 2 and the first one delivered that feeling of weight and making everything count as if it's your last. Everything hits hard. Like, these characters aren't Marines. They aren't trained to use these guns, so they're not going to be expert at handling recoil and, everything that comes with being a marksman. So one thing I always gave it credit for is, it feels like it puts you in the shoes of a normal person, and in some type of post-apocalyptic world where it's like there's no laws. Get you a gun, figure out how to use it, and use it well. And every encounter in The Last of Us 2, even in the first one, is heavy. It delivers very tense moments. Gameplay, throughout it, even though it's clunky, it fits. Like everything kind of works out in its own weird way. Like most of the time you're going to play through this game, you're going to find yourself with the bare minimum. Like there's hardly enough ammo, but there's always more than one way through a situation. You have the opportunity to stealth your way through the game. For the most part, that's how I choose to play. I try to reserve ammo for situations where I feel like, okay, I have to fight. But there are some things here where I feel like this game definitely needed more work, and I don't see where people are praising it as a whole when in the gameplay department, because there are some things that don't quite make any type of sense. And let me explain. To touch on what I meant earlier about, they made minor improvements to this game, um, versus the first one. They gave you the ability to jump and go prone. I feel like the jump button is completely useless. It's useless. It's very contextual. But the ability to go prone is something that should have been in the first game. So I'm not going to give them credit for something that should have been there in the first place. Like, I feel like they don't deserve too much credit for that, regardless of their reasons of putting it in the game. They say, oh, well, Ellie is a lot more limber than Joel. Dog, how hard is it to lay on your stomach or lay on your back, bro? Like, I don't I don't necessarily get where all the praise is going with those two improvements. It's just like, it's something like that should have been there. Moving on to my next topic, because I wanted to try to keep this, I didn't want to completely bash the game. I wanted to give, some pros, some cons, but there are a lot more cons in this game than there are pros, and it mainly comes down to the story and what Neil Druckmann wanted you to feel while playing this game. There are moments in combat against human enemies where the game kinds to give you this feeling of choice, right? You will be the enemy, it'll be the last enemy, and they'll drop to their knees, hurt and pleading for their life. Now, you can choose to walk away from the enemy. You can choose to do this, but they're going to try to kill you. So you will have no choice but to kill them, right? And this is about to start dipping into the problems that most people have with the story, where it's just like they wanted you to think about the actions of everything that you do, of everybody you kill. In the game, they give every enemy, every human enemy in the game has a name. So when you kill them and one of their friends finds their body, they will call that person's name as, some type of way to make you feel like, oh, you should have let them live, or whatever the case was, with whatever they were trying to do with that. But when you try to walk away from people that are pseudo surrendering and they pick up a gun and start shooting you in the back, you have no choice but to kill them. So it's like, how can you guys try to force some type of empathy on me and then just take it away, right? And this is coming down to the story. Now, on my playthrough, as of right now, I literally just got to the part where you play as Abby, and I turned this shit off. I said, no, I don't want to play with this character. I don't like Abby. And the reasons why I don't like Abby is just because it's a poorly written game. She's a poorly written character, and there are things within it as a whole that just don't make any sense to me.
Do okay.
Are you fucking kidding me?
You're welcome, kiddo. say we keep looking around, huh?
Yeah, I guess.
Hey. Welcome to Earth.
Yeah.
Okay, and what you just saw here was one of the flashback cutscenes, these moments that happen throughout the game that I feel like are the strongest part of this game's narrative. And I don't know, if they put these in the game to tease the players, like, haha, we killed Joe. You will never get anything like this in the present day. And to make it worse, it's like they killed the dude in like the first hour and a half of the game in a way that doesn't make sense. And this is why a lot of people don't like Abby. It isn't because she looks like She-Hulk.
Museum stuff over there.
That's not why. I mean, to some people that might be the reason why, but it just doesn't make sense how they killed Joel if you played the first game. The dude was cautious of everything and everybody. Hell, they were in a car at one point driving through a city, and he recognized a trap or a fake scenario the moment he saw it. So, and that goes for him and Tommy.
Got more exploring to do.
They would never just come out of, nowhere telling people their real names.
Nice.
It just doesn't make any type of sense. So these characters, the way they were written in the first game, and then transitioning over to the second game, and seeing how Joel dies, you'd be like, well, what the hell happened? Did my man suddenly become an idiot? Or who is this dude? Whose man's is this? That's what you're thinking when you're playing through that section of the game. You're just like, nah, this would have never happened in the first one. So, let's touch on Abby.
Hey, who's being there?
Abby's motivations for wanting to kill Joel is, he killed her dad. Her dad was the surgeon that was going to basically kill Ellie to try to find a cure, right? To try to find a cure for the cordyceps virus going around infecting people, right? Now, I don't know if y'all know anything about like how immunities and immune systems work, but the one thing that you should never want to do is kill the body that's that's immune to a disease or an infection or what they call a fungus. If you kill the person that's immune, their body stops making the antibodies, right? And then nobody else can get them, right? You can't make a vaccine from dead cells, so that didn't make any sense to me at all. But once again, Abby, new character, murders a fan favorite, a main character at that. How long has this game been out? How long did the first one come out? Like 7 years ago. You go through the entire game with this guy, and they kill him within the first hour and a half of the sequel. If that wasn't the biggest slap in the face, I don't know what was. And once again, they tried to humanize this character in the second act of the game. But think about it, right? Was it necessary? Was it necessary to try to put us in control of Abby? We know, Joel killed her dad. Joel also gave her dad and everybody else there the option to back off, or he was going to kill everybody. They chose to oppose him, so they got what they deserved, right? Like, it's common sense, common in this world that they live in. So I don't think Neil Druckmann or Naughty Dog, whatever, they decided they didn't need to put us in the shoes of Abby. Because if someone killed your father, killed your child, and there was no laws, of course you're going to want to see them dead. You're going to want revenge. You didn't need to try to place this character on us, because that's just some like normal human emotion. That's a normal human thing. Like, we all kind of have that feeling of an eye for an eye, right? Like, that is just how it is. It sounds messed up, but like, I don't understand why, hey, let's play as the killer. Like, I'm not sure how many of you seen Avengers Endgame, right? Iron Man dies at the end of the movie. If they killed Iron Man at the beginning of the movie and gave us a movie from Thanos' perspective, and then at the end somebody didn't kill Thanos, they forgave him, you'd be like, what is this? What was the point of this? What was the point of everything that happened? You'd be pissed, right? And that right there, for them to try to do something like that was an example of horrible writing. You can't. I mean, okay, you could try to make players feel something with this art that you created, but that wasn't the way to do it. And speaking of characters within the game, they introduced a lot of filler characters that I would say, especially the WLF Abby's group. They want you to care for what these characters have going on a day-to-day basis, or their personal relationships. Dude, nobody cares about these characters. Like, if you wanted us to care about these characters, you should have don't kill Joel at the beginning of the game and have them all surrounding him, and then you've got this one guy who spits on him, and it's just like, dude, like, this wasn't the way to go about it. I feel the same way toward Jesse. It was like he was fucking pointless. But I do like a lot of the scenes, a lot of the moments with Ellie and Dina. I kind of feel like that was something that should have been like explored more. They actually did a good job with the writing between these two characters. And if you like play the game and you read through Ellie's journal, it's an optional thing. But like, if you read through Ellie's journal, there's a lot of lore that you will miss. That if you don't look at it, you're just gonna miss it, because a lot of these things aren't talked about, aren't explored within the normal gameplay. And I really do feel like them trying to introduce us to these new characters and giving us like 10 hours of gameplay with Abby and the WLF was stupid. They could have focused more on Ellie, Dina, and possibly Jesse. But then again, it's like, hey, it's just terrible writing. It was just terrible writing on their part. And I understand that what I'm about to say next is a hot button topic, but we got to talk about it.
Well, let's get a move on. Get a fire going.
A lot of the people that don't like this game, they don't like it not because of the inclusion of all the LGBTQ things. It's more or less the way it was implemented and why it was implemented. Once again, I'll say I liked the relationship between Ellie and Dina. I feel like that should have been more of the story. Like, that should have been more of the story. I haven't necessarily gotten to the part where you meet the the Lev character, the one that's supposedly trans, right? I haven't gotten there, so I don't know what's going on with that. But from what I've heard, just a, you know, saying a brief little explanation as to what doesn't make sense, at least to me, about this within the world of The Last of Us. The character is supposedly a part of a cult, right? And this cult is called like the Scars. They kill people. They kill people. Um, they basically indoctrinate people within their group by scarring their face. You know, so they have like some wild beliefs already. You get what I'm saying? Like their beliefs are something that they will kill about. And I'm not saying that, you know, just because of the world they live in, that they shouldn't write characters that shouldn't be able to express their orientations, you know, whatever the case is. It's when they write a scenario and it's like, hey, you know, I'm going to make this character try to make somebody from this cult understand them. It was like that was pointless. And then to make a whole like 10 hours, some hours um, about this character in this situation just seemed pointless. I wouldn't want to play a game set in post-apocalyptic America and some of the things that you have to do within the game involves Black Lives Matters, simply because it wouldn't make any type of sense within the context of the narrative. It wouldn't. There's no law, there's no society. That type of thing would not make any type of sense. So, and I've seen quite a few people trying to figure out how does this fit within the world? Like how would that fit within the world? And the easy answer is it doesn't. It absolutely does not. So I'm not saying that everybody is okay with all of the LGBTQ stuff, because you know there are a lot of people out there who are closed-minded to it, but it's just in the context of how it was written, it just seems like Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog, what they did was include it with the worst type of writing, but included it just for the sake of, hey, this is going to be a think piece, this is going to be a hot button topic, and if you're on one side of the topic, then you hate the other, and it was mainly just to drive sales. That's just how I'm looking at it, because from a narrative point of view, once again, it doesn't make sense, and it all falls back on terrible writing, absolutely horrible writing. Alright, so to close out this review, or review rant, whatever you want to call it, is The Last of Us Part 2 a bad game? No. It has its moments. Combat is still pretty good. Gunplay is still great. There's a lot of things to like about the world that it's set in and the confrontations that you get into within the game. But as far as the narrative, it really bogs down the game as a whole. It's very convoluted. A lot of it doesn't make sense within the world. They give you this pseudo sense of choice when you don't really have a choice. And once again, it all fails due to the writing of the game, from top to bottom. The meat and potatoes of the game is just not, it's not what they were aiming for. So is this game worth your $60? No, not if you played the first one and like the first one's story. You're gonna hate this one. You're gonna hate it. If you never played the first one, then you might see this game is worth your $60. But to those of us that played the first one, hold off and wait for a sale. That's my thoughts on it. If you liked it, if you like this type of content on my channel, like, subscribe, I'll be doing more.